morning, and welcome to UUCC, the Unitarian Universalist Church of Canandaigua. We are a group of spiritual free thinkers who gather to celebrate life, build community, and better the world. Wherever you are on your spiritual journey, you are welcome here. I'm Karen Alvarez, your worship associate for this morning, and the service today is being led by our minister, Eileen Casey Campbell. This service is also being live streamed on our YouTube channel. We will plan on continuing with hybrid worship services throughout the church year, so you can join us each week here in person, on Zoom, or later on YouTube if you prefer. If this is your first visit, welcome. We invite you to sign the visitor's book in the entryway. And whether it's your first visit or your 100th visit, we're glad that you came. I do have a few announcements to share with you today. Please wear a mask. Masks are available for anyone who forgot one. RE and childcare will be provided this morning by Nancy Reed and Kaya Mells. We will be collecting the cards for joys and sorrows after our first hymn. Please fill them out or type into the chat box on Zoom if you have something you would like to share. Tuesday, February 28th, there will be an online celebration of John Lewis and recognition of Good Trouble congregations. Find out more at sidewithlove.org. Join us at our worship Zoom link from 12 to 12:30 on Wednesdays in Lent for meditation series focused on discernment through creativity. Come in person to UUCC for a game night for all ages on Saturday, March 4th, with a potluck dinner and a bake sale from 5:30 to 9:30. Reminder to sign up for coffee hour if that's something that you're interested in. There's a calendar on the refrigerator. You don't have to do it by yourself. Get your neighbor to help you. It can be a Soul Matters group, whatever is working. We will be having a nearly new sale in May, so start putting aside things for that now as you find them. I know I've got a couple boxes in my garage. And then just kind of keep them in your garage until we get further instructions for when to drop them off. Are there any other announcements for the good of the community?
Yes. We'll have a family game night hosted by your board on March 4th, which is a Saturday, starting at, I'm looking at the board members, 5:30. Here, it's a potluck, bake sale, and game night. So bring yourself, your whole family if you like. It's for all ages. Bring a dish to pass if you're able, and don't worry about it if you're not. And bring your favorite games if you have them, or just come play someone else's favorite games if you don't.
As we prepare to be fully together, I remind you to silence your phones and devices. We now enter a space of worship. Lauren and Elliot are going to come up this morning to help with the chalice lighting. Oh, perfect. we gather this hour as people of faith, with joys and sorrows, gifts and needs. We light this beacon of hope, sign of our quest for truth and meaning, to get celebration of the life we share together. Awesome. Thank you. I got it.
Good morning. Okay, so we are talking about conflict today. I learned about the importance of navigating conflict in my role as a classroom teacher. I was responsible for working with and leading a team of 4 paraprofessionals to provide a good educational program for students with severe disabilities. The work is physically and emotionally demanding and requires the adults to work together because our young people are significantly impacted by their environment, including the adults around them. The students rely on the adults to bring positive energy every day. So every year, I and the other members of my classroom team would start the year off very enthusiastic, and it was clear that each and every adult was dedicated to the students' well-being and their progress. And so surely, this would be the year we would just sail through to June without any conflicts. We'd be a tight-knit, mutually supportive group and end the whole year that way. And every year, despite our best efforts and our shared commitment to the students, resentment, frustration, irritation, and anger would grow between and amongst the team. And by the end of March, people would be grouching at or avoiding each other, counting down the days to the end of the year. And the tension in the room directly and negatively affected all the students and the staff. It was disappointing and bewildering. I didn't know what to think. Was it them? Was it me? I mean, my skills are not exactly intact in diplomacy. And growing up, my family dealt with conflict by ignoring it and quietly blaming the other people for problems. Teacher prep programs, they don't include leadership and conflict management techniques for adults. Regardless of my skills or lack, the problem was affecting my students, and their success was important to me, so I needed to figure it out. I talked to mentors, I worked through spiritual direction, and I came to some realizations. Relationships are important in every aspect of life: work, church, home, and they require investment of time and energy, or they won't be healthy for the people involved or the people around them. Conflict is normal in every relationship. Ignoring it or hoping someone with skills will magically appear and help you navigate it, it's not a very effective strategy. And as a member of that team, and in fact a leader in the room, regardless of all of my shortcomings, I would have to make things better. So I invested time and resources in building and maintaining good relationships in my team. At the beginning of the year, I gathered the paraprofessionals together for a welcome to my classroom discussion. And I told them I was committed not just to the success of the students, but the success of the team. I told them I believe strong teams are made up of individuals with diverse perspectives, different strengths, and then with mutual respect and support for each other, we would get through conflicts together. I said relationships are reinforced by working toward common goals, like our collective commitment to the students, and shared adversity, even navigating conflict. So things did get better. It wasn't always graceful. And there were very often difficult conversations, especially in March, the longest month of the school year. But we got through conflict more quickly, and more often than not, we ended the year as that tight-knit, mutually supportive team that I had hoped for. Which brings me to why I come to this church. I value working with this congregation, with people who have diverse perspectives, diverse strengths, toward our common goals of the church community and our UU principles. I believe that our relationships are important and that conflict is normal, even at church. I also believe that it's important to invest time energy, and resources to develop and practice relationship and conflict management skills to maintain a healthy congregation. I'm glad our topic is conflict. It's hard and holy work, and I'm glad to share this journey with you. I'm also here to support our stewardship campaign. I also value the financial health of our church. And to that end, in my budget, I prioritize my annual pledge to UUCC. I'm happy to devote a percentage of my annual income to ensure that we have a well-trained, highly skilled professional preaching in the pulpit, directing our pastoral care and RE teams, and leading our church in general. I believe it's important to invest in new materials and playground equipment for our children so that they know that their well-being is valued. And I never want our music to be limited because we can't afford to buy the rights to some new sheet music that Bill wants to work. So please join me in supporting the work of our church. Please refresh your pledge next month. Thank you.
Our opening hymn this morning is number 1, May Nothing Evil Cross This Door. Please rise as you're willing and able and join us to sing.
Friends, we are a community that promises to hold one another in both our joys and our sorrows. In our biggest celebrations and in our deepest pain, we say to one another, we are with you. So I invite you, if you have joys or sorrows on your heart this morning, to write them on the little slip of paper you'll find in your seat, or to type them into the chat box if you're joining us on Zoom, and to pass them forward now. If you type them on Zoom, we will pass them forward on your behalf. Are there joys or sorrows to lift up today? For a story. And this is a story I've told you before, but I think I'm glad it's okay. I think we need to tell it a little bit differently today. And I think I need your help. This is a story called The Town Where No One Forgave. And I need a couple helpers to let us really visualize this story. So it starts with an old traveler who's been many, many places. Is anyone feeling like a wise old traveler this morning? These are all non-speaking parts, by the way. Anyone feel like they have it in them to be a wise old traveler? Gigi is a wise old traveler. And Elliot, we're going to need you too. Why don't you come right on up if you want to help? Because we need some townspeople, maybe 2 or 3 townspeople. Anyone feel like they live in a town and they could be a person? Okay, here's our townspeople. So you're right over here. Thank you, townspeople. And the story goes like this. Once upon a time, there was a wise old traveler. She'd been many places and she'd seen many things, and that's how she got to be so wise. She spent all of her days traveling from town to town and learning about the people there. And one day she came down the road to a new town, and she saw in this town that the people were walking with burdens on their back, big, heavy bags and satchels on their back, so heavy that they walked stooped over, so they couldn't even look each other in the eye. They had to look down at the ground as they walked. They stooped, some of them all the way down on their hands and knees under these burdens. She walked through the town and she noticed that everyone walked this way, carrying big stacks of heavy bags and burdens on their backs. So she went to the town square and she approached some of the townspeople and she said to them, "What are these burdens you're carrying?" And they looked at her, curious as to why she didn't carry such burdens, and they said, "Well, these are our grudges." And she needed a little more explanation. She said, "Excuse me, what? Your grudges?" And they said, "Yeah, anytime there's a conflict, a problem between us and another person, we carry it on our back." And she said, "Well, that's a lot of grudges for a lifetime." Looking even at the small children who carried a whole back's worth of grudges, and they said, "Well, they're not just our grudges. They're our parents' grudges and our grandparents and our great-grandparents. Of course, we have an inheritance, and so we carry all of our ancestors' grudges as well." And she said, "Well, it looks painful." And they said, "Well, yeah, life is painful when you have grudges. It's heavy and it's hard to carry. That's how it is." And she said, "And you can't walk upright and look each other in the eye." And they said, "Well, yeah, that's the way of things. It's very hard, you're right." And she said, "I think I know some magic that I've learned in my travels, and I think I could help you. So could you gather everyone to the town square?" So she asked a small child, and the child ran through the town, gathering everyone to the town square. And all the people and all their burdens came and gathered, and they hunched over in the town square to listen to this old woman's wisdom. And she told them, "I think there are a couple of magic words that you need to learn, and once I teach you, I think you won't have to carry these grudges anymore. And the first words are these: I'm sorry." And the people repeated after her, "I'm sorry." And then the second words are these: "I forgive you." And the people repeated after her, "I forgive you." And the end of the story, as I learned it, goes like this: as the people said these words, they magically were able to lift the burdens off their backs, stand up straight and tall, and look each other in the eye once again. But I think we actually missed something maybe when we told this story a couple of years ago. And here's what I think it is. As they take the burdens off their backs, what happens to them? They don't just disappear, right? I think we missed the part where they actually unpack the bags, see what's inside, bring it out to the light of day, and then say to one another, "I'm sorry, and I forgive you." And so that's exactly what they did do. They unpacked their bags, they laid their burdens down in the light of day and said, "Here is what we've done, and I'm sorry." And the other said, "I see what you've done, and I forgive you." And they were able to walk upright look one another in the face, and care more deeply for each other than they ever had. And so they went back to their homes, and the old wise woman went on her way. And this is the end of our story.
Now is the time in our service to join together in the spiritual practice of generosity. Our gifts of both time and money support our church in its work. Each week, we spotlight a group or committee and thank them for their gifts of time. This week, the group is the Board of Trustees. Along with preparing for the new fiscal pledge year, we will also have some space available on the board. So please, if this is something that you're interested in, reach out to the board members, me, Brandon, Gigi, Laura, Pat, Mel's. I got there in the end. And also, if you know that you're interested, you can reach out directly to the nominating committee, which is Dorothy Hoskins and Tom Lyons. 1/4 of our plate collection for the frozen season goes to Climate Solutions Accelerator of the Grease Finger Lakes region, an organization working for a thriving region on a healthy planet, achieved through bold, systemic climate solutions that promote prosperity and security for all. You can give to this morning's offering by placing cash or a check into the basket or by one of the options on your screen. Please make a note that your gift is intended for today's offering. We now gratefully accept the offering.
We have lots of joys and sorrows to lift up this morning. First, we have a sorrow about the impending second year of a war in Ukraine that we all hold together. And many joys. Joy shared with Oren for his celebration of his birthday on the 24th and the Rubik's Cube he received. We share in joy with the opportunity to spend time with friends this weekend. We share the joy of getting to go skiing and the potential joy of having gone 72 miles per hour. Joy without evidence. And we share in Melissa's excitement about an upcoming trip to see her grandmother. And with these and all the joys and sorrows left in the silence of our hearts, I ask Karen to drop a stone of recognition and invite us to say to one another, "We are with you." So will you say it with me?
We are with you.
And now, my friends who are heading to religious education downstairs, now is the time to go. Now is the time in our service for centering and shared meditation And this morning we have a musical meditation. So I invite you as we begin to open your teal hymnals to hymn number 1031, Filled with Loving Kindness. We'll sing it 3 times throughout this musical meditation and use the words as printed each time. There are some indications you may see about using other words, but we'll use the words as they're written. So let's take a deep breath in and let it out with a sigh. Let some part of you in your chair here or wherever you're sitting at home find the good earth and feel supported. Maybe your feet come to touch the floor. Your arm leans on the chair. And feel the support of the good earth holding you. As you release your next breath, release your shoulders down away from your ears. Let the corners of your eyes sink and perhaps your eyes close altogether. And I ask you to call into your heart, into your imagination, the image of yourself, of your deepest self, the you are when you are most you, the youest you. And as we sing through our musical meditation the first time, I invite you to grow in your heart a deep love and compassion for that most you. Let us take a breath of silence and then sing together.
May I be filled with loving kindness. May I be well. May I be filled with loving kindness. May I be well. May I be peaceful and at ease. May I be whole.
Let's breathe again together. And I ask you now to call into that space in your heart, in your imagination, the image of a person you love, someone you love deeply, who is easy for you to love with your whole heart and whole being. And as we sing our meditation a second time, I invite you to grow like a flower in your heart the love and compassion that you already have for this person. Let us take a breath of silence and then sing together.
May I be filled with loving kindness. May I be well. May I be filled with loving kindness. May I be well. May I be peaceful and at ease. May I be
Once more, let's take a breath in together. And as we sing through our meditation the final time, I invite you to call into your heart, into your deepest imagination, the image of someone who you struggle with. Maybe you're in active conflict. Maybe it's someone you just don't really like. Someone you have a hard time with or are having a hard time with for right now. And I invite you as we sing through to grow like a flower in your heart, deep loving kindness and compassion for that person. Let us take a breath of silence and then sing together.
May I be filled with loving kindness. May I be well. May I be filled with loving kindness. May I be well. May I be peaceful and at ease. May I be whole.
Amen. This morning's service, the last in our season of boundaries, is called The Joy of Conflict, which maybe seems a little oxymoronic, or maybe just moronic, though I'm sure you wouldn't put it that way to my face. But I do actually mean it, that conflict can be a source of joy. Now, I'm not oblivious to the fact that conflict can be uncomfortable, difficult, even downright painful, but I don't think that conflict in itself is necessarily a problem. In fact, I think our tendency to avoid conflict, run from it or push it down before it can rise to the surface of our relationships in order to avoid discomfort, difficulty, and pain is much more of a problem. Some of my favorite nonviolent activist friends who are much more comfortable and competent with conflict than I am have told me they like to think about it as a check engine light in their car. It's not a problem in and of itself, it's primarily informational. So we might get some big feelings about seeing our check engine light come on when we turn on the car on our way to go to work in the morning. It might mean we're frustrated or preemptively exhausted by all the work it indicates we'll need to do to fix something. It might mean we feel disappointed or stressed about potential outcomes. But the light itself isn't a problem, right? It's a helpful hint pointing us toward a problem that would exist with or without the light. And getting rid of conflict, avoiding conflict, getting rid of that check engine light would only make us unaware of problems that might have been easy to work on if only we'd known about them earlier. When we change the way we think about conflict, I think, as a gift of information about our relationships, about ourselves and our values, we get access to the opportunities that conflict offers for growth, for transformation, for deeper meaning and stronger connection in all our relationships. So I used to have this boss who had a really passive style of communication. He hated conflict of any kind and would bend over backwards to avoid even the faintest hint of the possibility of disagreement. It meant that it was often hard to tell what he wanted from me. He would make factual statements like, "Someone will have to take charge of those PowerPoint slides," and it was up to me to decide whether there was instruction implicit in there or not. Or he'd make emotion-based I statements like they teach you to do in healthy communication seminars and whatnot. Like, "I'm just overwhelmed at the thought of doing this whole project myself. It's a lot for one person." And as his staff, we'd have to offer our help or not and hope we were correct in assuming what it was he wanted. As you might imagine, I started to feel a lot of resentment around my expectations in this role, since they were hardly ever clear to me. My resentment, ironically, felt like a silent conflict with this extremely conflict-avoidant person about his conflict avoidance. In fact, his extreme avoidance of conflict hadn't kept him out of conflict. It just kept him unaware of the silent conflict he was in with most of the people in his life. But this is not a sad story about this man, because one day something magical happened. See, this man was married to a therapist, quite happily married, for many, many years, a fact I found in the midst of my resentment to be perplexing. And one morning, while I was in this boss's office, his wife popped in. They had a quick chat, and I got to hear the interaction. He made the same sort of extremely passive, indirect non-ask with her that he tended to do with his staff. He said something like, "I'll be working pretty late tonight. I don't know how much time I'll have to get groceries on my way home." And this remarkable woman waited a beat, and then she said, as sweetly, gently, and clear as could be, "Hun, are you making a request of me?" He paused and then said, "Well, yeah, would it be all right if you got the groceries tonight?" She agreed and went on her way. I was forever changed. This little phrase, "Are you making a request of me?" changed my relationship with that supervisor and freed me from so much resentment. It changed all my relationships, honestly. I probably use that phrase at least once a week to establish clarity of expectations, politely, kindly, and calmly with people I'm in relationships with. Heck, I say it to my kids every time they whine at me, "I'm hungry," or "I'm bored." I say, "Are you making a request of me?" And I hope that it's helping them to be clear in asking for what they need and setting up a pattern of trust that any potential conflict that arises from making our needs known is worth having. Being afraid of conflict tends to, just like my old boss, get us into conflicts that we don't know we're in. It just turns off the check engine light. So my friend Gwen, who's preached here for us in the past actually, is the co-director of the Gandhi Institute for Nonviolence and a bit of an expert in conflict transforming communication. And she once told me something that's stuck with me ever since. Like my boss's wife, she's one of those really brilliant people who will sometimes say a thing offhand that just then sticks in your brain for the rest of time. Anyway, she said once, "Most of the times I'm feeling resentment. It's because I failed to make a request for what I need or neglected to set a boundary." And at first, it pissed me off a little bit. Like when I'm feeling resentment, I really want it to be someone else's fault. Don't you? Like I want it to be up to someone else to solve the problem of how I'm feeling about them. But I think Gwen's observation summarizes most of what we actually have control over in our relationship conflicts. Making requests for what we need and setting boundaries around what we can and cannot tolerate. And still, it can be hard for us to do that, right? Let me be clear off the bat, I am very much included in the us here. My family of origin thinks to large family dynamics and their particular blend of neurodivergence tends to be very direct in communication. So because I know that everyone thinks they're a direct communicator, something our society claims to prefer no matter what it actually teaches us to do, very few of us are actually direct communicators all of the time. I checked in with my partner about whether my perceptions of my parents' communication style were actually accurate. And he said, "Oh, they're direct, all right, to a fault, I'd say. Your mom says absolutely every thought that ever comes into her head. Your dad cannot understand subtext to save his life. Maybe you're worried right now, if you're a little bit conflict avoidant, that my parents are listening to our live stream and might be insulted by my having said this about them. This is how blunt the communication expectations in my family are. They are definitely listening to our live stream. Hi, Mom. And they are not at all insulted by me making factual, direct statements about the way they behave." So I was raised by my parents to communicate very directly and comprehensively, but they aren't the only ones who raised me. I was also enculturated by a society enmeshed in white supremacy, which teaches us that avoiding outward conflict is a core value. Yes, there it is. White supremacy, yet again. It is the work of our lifetimes. We will talk about it until it's ancient history, which was probably going to be long after we are ancient history. So if you remember the list of elements of white supremacy culture that we've been talking about throughout this season of Boundaries, fear of open conflict was number 11. In particular, my role as a white woman in white supremacy culture is prescribed as the person who smooths over conflicts before they arise. White women have been conditioned by our culture to maintain white supremacy by embodying the kind of politeness that is a replacement for actual compassion and right action. White supremacy requires white men's rage, and white women's role in this system is to be the pressure valve for that rage, of which we are also victims. So I tell you, it's no small thing to undo that depth of fear of conflict that we have been imbued with. It is big work. This is maybe a good place to stop and say that while we're talking about white supremacy, cultural differences in communication styles are morally neutral. There are cultures that tend toward more direct communication. American deaf culture, for example, is so direct that it's not unusual to greet someone you haven't seen for a while with a statement like, "Wow, you've gained some weight since I saw you last." In many less direct cultures, that observation would be unbearably rude. On the other hand, some cultures tend toward much less direct communication. So I used to live in South Asia, where indirect communication is expected and bluntness is incredibly impolite. And as a white American, it took me quite some time to not be put off by what felt like a lack of transparency. More direct communicators tend to view subtlety as manipulative, and to more indirect communicators, frank communication can seem quite disrespectful and undiplomatic. Neither are right or wrong, necessarily. These communication styles may be more or less effective in different contexts, but they are morally neutral. And either or both can be used to heal or transform conflicts and build meaningful relationships. What's problematic is the use of one communication style or another to avoid healing and transforming conflicts, to avoid the risk of conflict and the work of moving through it that is necessary to have depth in our relationships. Dr. Tima Okun, who first created that list of white supremacy culture, talks about this problem in particular as people in power ignoring conflict and creating and preserving systems that suppress it. It looks like an overemphasis on politeness at the expense of compassion, justice, or truth. It takes the form of blame directed at a person who raises a problem or disagreement rather than at collective work on resolving that issue. Conflict avoidance looks like people who mask their emotions, maintaining an outward calm, being characterized as rational or intelligent, while people who express their emotions being characterized as irrational or unintelligent. It has the effect of devaluing emotional intelligence and overvaluing control. So the first thing that we can do to lean into the joy that conflict offers us is shake off some of our inherited white supremacy, is to stop caring about how rational we are. This is a hard one for UUs. We love to hold our faith up as rational and reasonable as compared to all the others. It makes us feel so great. Superior almost, when you say, yeah, we've got to let go of that. Listen, we can't actually know how rational we are. By definition, an irrational person can't gauge what is or isn't rational. So if we're making rational choices, we'll think we're being rational. And if we're making irrational choices, we'll think we're being rational. It's not the metric that will work for us. What we can gauge, no matter what we're going through, is connection. We can connect with how we're feeling inside our own bodies. We can connect with the truth of another person's experience as they tell it to us. And when our own feelings are at odds with another person's experience, we can set aside the goals of rightness or rationality. Because if our goal is connection, then conflict is a gift, a joy even, an opportunity to work through difference together toward a more deep and meaningful connection. And white supremacy culture would have us center reason and rationality, which really just centers power and control. Whoever maintains power and control over their emotions in this model wins. And winning, of course, is the way to maintain power and control over the relationship. When we reject white supremacy and center connection, winning isn't part of conflict at all. And the only control we have is around our own actions. Our power is not over another person, but it is the power to recognize our own needs, make requests, the power to set boundaries for our own behavior. It is a gift, and it's really freaking hard. So my oldest child is almost 7, and we've been talking about what it means to set a boundary quite a bit lately. Especially with his toddler sibling, I've been encouraging him to deal with certain annoyances by setting boundaries. A relationship boundary, I say at least once a day, is telling someone what you will do to keep yourself safe, healthy, and happy. So a few days ago, they were playing with blocks, and the little sibling was making a loud screeching noise, for fun, apparently. I could see from across the room that my older kid was getting annoyed. He had remarked a few times how loud the noise was and how much he disliked it. He made requests for quiet. It wasn't working. So I said, "Now's a good time to set a boundary." He stood up and said, "If you keep making that noise, I'm going to smash your blocks to the ground." Whoops, I interjected. That's actually a threat, not a boundary. Let's try again. Remember, a boundary is about what you will do for yourself to stay safe, healthy, and happy. He sighed loudly and said, "Oh, fine. If you keep making that noise, I'm going to go away and stop playing with you." Friends, it is good to remember that setting and holding relationship boundaries is not easy. Even when we're older than 7, sometimes we're 57 and in a marriage or a lifelong friendship or serving on a church committee, we still get mixed up about what is a boundary and what is a threat. So let's make it clear, right? Because my child needs reminders, and so do I, and so do all of us. A boundary is a choice we make for ourselves about how to stay safe, healthy, and happy. Emotionally, physically, financially, spiritually, safe, healthy, and happy. So if it is a way of seeking power or control over anyone but yourself, it's probably a threat, not a boundary. As a more adult example, if you don't agree to stop drinking, I will physically bring you to a rehab facility against your will. That's a threat. But I'm not comfortable around you while you're drinking. I'm only going to come around when you're sober from now on. That's a boundary. See how one is about control over another person's choices, and the other is about control over your own choices. Here's another example. If you don't make the policy change I'm passionate about, I will pull my enormous pledge from the church budget. This is not a real-life example. This is a hypothetical example. And it's a threat. But I'm feeling like the church's values aren't really well aligned with mine anymore. I need to suspend my membership to protect my own integrity. That's a boundary. Maybe a boundary that doesn't even need to be voiced. That's a healthy boundary. It's important to do this practice of boundary setting in small ways so that we've developed our conflict muscles when the big stuff comes up. And in a culture that would have us avoid conflict to maintain systems of control, it is a significant spiritual exercise to remind ourselves that all we control in a relationship is our own behaviors. Boundary setting is a gift to ourselves in that way. It is the practice of making clearer and clearer the space around ourself. Our opening hymn, "May Nothing Evil Cross This Door," was meant to bless the building of a church. But I love to think of it as a blessing on our persons, on our own bodies. The boundaries that we set in the care and connection with our deepest selves will withstand the battering of the storm, as the hymn says. They will indeed keep hate out and hold love in. And clarity of boundaries, clarity around the limits of what we each control, makes conflict a blessing to our communities. Without the goal of winning or ending up with power over others, we can step into these spaces where our hearts are at odds, with our boundaries keeping resentment away, and do the work of transforming conflict into deeper meaning and even joy. May it be so. Amen.
Well, it looks like it might be a hard road, but I'm gonna walk it with you. And I know that you might have a heavy load, but I can carry some too. I will lift you up when they push you down. I will raise my voice and stand my ground. Well, it looks like it might be a hard road, but I'm gonna walk it with you. Well, it looks like it might be a long night, but I ain't going nowhere. And I know it's gonna be a hard fight, but I will stay right here. I will shine a light in the darkest hour. I will face the man in the tallest tower. Well, it looks like it might be a long night, but I ain't going nowhere. I will work, I will fight, I will stride in the name of love. I will speak, I will shout, I will sing into the skies above. Well, it looks like it might be a perilous climb, but I will follow your lead. And I know it might be a long time until the last one of us is free. I'll hold on tight, stay by your side, be with you through this whole damn ride. Well, it looks like it might be a perilous climb, but I will follow your lead. Well, it looks like it might be a hard road, but I'm gonna walk it with you. And I know that you might have a heavy load, but I can carry some too. I will lift you up, I will push you down, I will raise my voice and stand my ground. Well, it looks like it might be a hard road, but I'm gonna walk it with you. That's right, I'm gonna walk it with you. You know, I'm gonna walk it with you. I will walk, I will climb, shine the light the whole night through, because it looks like it might be a hard road, but I'm gonna walk it with you.
our many conflicts, draw us always closer in, deeper in, to that circle of belonging which holds each and every one of us. Will you rise in body or in spirit and sing with me our closing hymn, number 346 in the gray hymnal? Come sing a song with me.
Please join me in our words for extinguishing the chalice. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again.